The South African Local Government Association, SALGA, concluded its two-day Municipal Legal Practitioners Forum in Durban on Friday. The forum seeks to address SALGA's legal challenges while identifying opportunities to enhance local government administration and strengthen legal services. We're joined now by Lance Joel, who is SALGA's Chief of Operations. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Mr. Joel. Great to have you on the program once again. So, of course, this was a gathering of heads of legal in municipalities, various municipalities. Talk to us about the importance of what was taking place there.
Well, good morning, Griselda, and also greetings to the viewers. Indeed, we concluded the two-day session where we gathered all heads of legal services across our municipalities with a specific view to improve the service offering that these practitioners provide to municipalities, and with a view to improve their individual and collective capacities to increase these services, focusing on legal to municipalities. We had very useful discussions, and I'm sure every legal practitioner that participated left better equipped to go back home and implement what they had learned over the 2 days.
Good of them to come together, but what I do understand is that we have seen, or we're still seeing, increased litigation against municipalities. And I ask this because in instances like, I think the area is Lydenburg, where communities are basically fed up over a lack of services, other communities fed up over lack of refuse collection, for example. They go to court to withhold paying for services because they simply want to do it for themselves. Are we seeing this increased litigation against municipalities?
Griselda, that's the unfortunate reality, and it is linked to what people are perceiving as the lack of the sustainable provision of services to communities. And so communities are taking it upon themselves. They are approaching the courts and asking the courts to allow them to provide those services, in particular where municipalities are unable to deliver those services. So core to our discussions over the last 2 days were, how do we manage these difficulties? How do we ensure that legal services are a strategic enabler to municipalities to avoid litigation by ensuring that appropriate steps are taken within the system legally towards the provision and perhaps so sustainable provision of services in our municipalities. An unfortunate reality, but we had the opportunity to interact, learn from each other, and go back home better equipped to address those weaknesses.
Yeah, it's not also just litigation against municipalities. It's also municipalities, litigating against individuals. I want to talk specifically about, because I do understand that the issue of water supply also came up. Payment for services to municipalities was also what took center stage, where, for example, I'll make an example where municipalities would disconnect water supply due to non-payment. Now, you're obviously, with these legal minds who had gathered, sitting with a conundrum where water is a basic right, but also you've got to balance that versus the fact that there are some communities that simply don't want to pay for services. Talk us through that discussion.
Well, Griselda, the unfortunate reality is that as we speak, municipalities are owed in excess of 310 billion rands. And so it is incumbent on municipalities to exercise and implement their credit control mechanisms. This, unfortunately, we have seen includes municipalities not only disconnecting electricity, but some even going to the extent of disconnecting water to force households to pay for the services that they have already received. So we were having a discussion around the legality of the disconnection of water, by also looking at experiences of actual municipalities where they have disconnected water in order to collect for other services. So we're having a balanced discussion about the rights of communities for access to water versus the right to a municipality to collect what is rightfully due to them. difficult circumstances that they have to deal with, but we were looking at legal solutions, but also taking cognizance of the constitutional rights of both households and individuals.
Yeah, and I don't want to let you go without speaking about coalitions, because I know that there are also discussions about a regulatory framework for coalitions. Of course, with what we've been seeing in some of the metros, we've had a taste of how problematic these can be. So these legal minds, of course, are those that gathered at this particular gathering are heads of legal that advise these councils. So what kind of discussions were had there, in particular as we head to an election, and I guess from some quarters, fears even that the kind of crises that we see with the coalitions in these metros could possibly escalate to national level? What kind of legal framework would help us manage these?
Well, certainly, Griselda, these legal minds are requested on a daily basis to, on their feet, provide legal advice to their councils. The difficulty they all acknowledged is that there's no legal framework within which coalitions are formed or within which coalitions are being sustained. And so there was a plea that it is time for us to have a legal framework. And this is not a new discussion. It's a discussion that has been ongoing for the past few years, but there's overwhelming support towards having a legal framework that will guide political parties in the formation of coalitions, the do's and the don'ts of coalitions, and how to also ensure that that does not impact negatively on the stability of municipalities to provide services. So overwhelming support for a legal framework. Of course, the legal framework will not be a solution to all of the problems of coalition governments, but it is a step towards creating certainty from a process point of view, but also start sustainability from a political point of view.